Okay, in this video I want to continue discussing postmodern pegs. I've discussed irony already, and here I would like to discuss the notion of commodification. The commodification principle, or we can also refer to it as commodification of relationship. Or it could be even referred to as the undercutting of the thou slash it distinction. Now this is what I mean. When a commodity is anything that you can use to trade. Okay, so anything that you can trade. Now when you do a trade, you exchange and you receive. Okay, so no one is going to really think of a trade as just a one-way thing. We call that a gift, and many times gifts have these quiet, silent strings attached, right? So they themselves turn into a form of a trade, but a trade goes back and forth. You give and you receive. So anytime anybody makes any sort of trade on the stock market, for example, you have two types of people automatically. You have the seller and the buyer. Someone wants to get rid of it, someone wants to get it. So you have those two sides. A commodity, again, is anything that you can give to get something back. Now, when the thing that a traditional or a realism notion of other people would say, look, they're mirrors of yourself, and you essentially think of entities in two categories: the object. One way to look at it is the object and the subject. But let's just say you look at it in terms of means and ends. Okay. So something might be a means to an end, and we call that a tool. Okay, so a tool doesn't exist for its own sake. It exists to help you do something in the process of achieving your goal, of fixing something, making something, or whatnot. It always serves. It has a subservient role. It's a means to an end. Okay, so you have the means, and then you have the ends. Now the ends are those things that exist for themselves. In other words, you're not using that thing for anything else but just to, the most accurate word here is worship it, in the sense of not elevate it as you would a deity, but just situate it opposite yourself or across from yourself in terms of this is an equal. I need to treat this with respect. I cannot use this for anything, but I must be respectfully in its presence. As think of someone that you sit down next to on a bus, and this is a human. What do you put your foot on this person? Do you start just start using it as a coat rack, so you put your coat on him? And no. How you respect that. You respect the space. You respect we have all these codes already in place of how we treat people. Now, now if we mix irony with this, we want to keep those codes in place because it just helps the whole system of living life flow. But to embrace the commodity principle in relationship is to say, you know what? Really, the only reason I care about you or this other is that you're a means to an end I have. I no longer look at you as a per se object, like a person per se, that demands my initial respect. Just your presence itself demands that, and I need to give it. I don't play those rules anymore. In fact, I look at you as a tool to help me get my goal, and my goal might be whatever it might be, but it's not to have this equal peer-to-peer exchange of respect and beneficence or goodwill between you and me. So again, as soon as you enter relationships with people, and the main reason you're entering a relationship or maintaining a relationship is because it allows you access to some material gain. Now, I don't want to just say money, but I'm talking about something that you feel you need, something you feel your body needs, something you feel society is demanding from you, and one of the easier ways, a convenient way to get it, is to be in a certain relationship. Okay, then all of a sudden that relationship to you is a relationship built on the commodity principle, and it's ultimately a selfish one because you're using the person to further your material gain. Now, it gets a little more complicated because as human beings we can somehow manage to mix all sorts of things in with it, right? So What about a family that says, if they look at each other, a family of four, and they're rather poor, and they look at each other, and you say, if we have one more kid, we will qualify for full coverage on welfare and on Medicare. Okay, so they have that third child, they become a family of five. Okay, and as the child grows up in the family, everyone loves and honors the child, and it's genuinely a part of the family. Or let's just say it's a family of four, and now they have four children. Now the fifth children. Now they're a family of six. Now they qualify for more things. And then you have another one. Now it's a family of seven, and they're qualifying for even. And finally, they're making it. Okay, and they're even saving a little bit. But they had to have 7 people in their family. And you know what? As the family lives together in that house, everyone deeply loves each other, and they enjoy each other, and they grieve when others grieve, and they rejoice when others rejoice. And you know what? What are you going to say here? You're looking at that kid as your kids are objects to help you with your material gain. Well, the number 7 has been reached, and you are being certainly materially helped. But is it always an either or? No, you may actually be also deeply involved with emotional connection and worship in that person-to-person sense. So, but nevertheless, there is a bit of that commodity principle in that relationship. So, because the origin of the children seemed to be spurred on by this notion of, if we hit a certain number, we can actually make it in this state, whatever state it is, Texas, Florida, Massachusetts, whatever, in terms of the benefits we would be open to. So it's not always as crass as the popular news media may make it out to be, or that some of the readings make it out to be. But nevertheless, that would be the commodification principle. And we need to remember that these readings suggest that a large group of the people in the culture today that are in the postmodern group, they're not as if they're growing into that group just, this is what's happening to us. This is the postmodern affect or whatever. They are. It's a second nature. It's a quiet training. It happens tacitly, quietly. In other words, the people begin to look at things and do things along the postmodern lines because, in fact, they are postmodern, but they can't articulate why they're doing it necessarily in the language of postmodernity. They're just trained. It's like the child that grows up in an English-speaking community. He learns how to speak English, but unless he has been adequately trained in the language of the grammar, he cannot tell you with great accuracy or consistency what are the nouns, the pronouns, the subjects, the objects, the infinitives, the prepositions, the predicates, the participles, the verbals of the English language. So that doesn't mean he doesn't know how to speak English. So, a lot of people will not be able to articulate this. But if they're actually semi-consciously doing this sort of commodification thing, and it seems to them as second nature, or the right thing to do, or an accepted strategy, they are moving along in the postmodern tracks, or trenches of the road, ruts of the road. And it's a spectrum, all right? A person, let's just say, like, here's one point and here's another point, and let's call this point the fully fledged postmodern. Okay, a person might be anywhere along this line, so they might just be doing this a little bit, or they might be doing it more so. And the promise is that if they continue their cultural development, and the future of their development resembles the past of their development, they will eventually get to this point where they are doing this in a full-fledged, all stops pulled out way. Okay, but you got to be able to give them the benefit of being only a little way along the road. So their commodification activity may not be so obvious or may not be so crass as others that tend to get into the popular news, all right, because of the atrocious things they do to other people. But if you can sense that the person, even though he's only a few steps on the path, is on the path, you can analyze that in terms of a postmodern activity.